Hey everyone, Graham from Loudwire here, and it's about time. I'm so excited to have Mr. Jay Weinberg from Slipknot. How are you today, man? It's so good to see you.
I'm doing great. It's good to see you too.
Look, I don't need to tell you about this segment. You know about it. It's time to go into Wikipedia. So, are you ready to prove some fact and fiction?
Oh boy. All right, here we go.
All
Let's do it.
right. Okay, first of all, I need to know about this. It says on Wikipedia that one of your nicknames is Ballbag.
Perhaps I've never heard it, but perhaps sure.
It says it on there. It says Ballbag and then JPEG.
Okay, so that might have come from the period of time where where I was still like anonymous in the band. So
Oh,
when it
okay.
came time when we would do the bit during Spit It Out where we have the whole audience get down on the ground and then jump up. And to kick back into it, Corey like motions to me to, start the song back up. But and he told me like, I mean, this is back like 8 years ago or whatever. I think he was like in the moment, he's like, oh my, like we're keeping you anonymous. I can't say your name, so I got to come up with something. So then, like, yeah, every night he was like saying some kind of different name to me. So that's probably what that's born out of then.
Okay, that's very good. Maybe some of the Slipknot fans will be able to confirm that if they were at that show.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah,
It says on Wikipedia that you began actually playing guitar at 9 and bass at around 12 or 13.
that's true.
All
Yeah,
right.
um, yeah. I was 9 years old when my dad got me my first guitar. It's actually still one of the only guitars that I play. Um, yeah, it was just like a Sunburst Fender Telecaster. And yeah, I got that, took lessons, but like, back at that age, like I didn't want to like go to school after school. So
Yeah.
taking lessons kind of made it feel like more school. And I just wanted to like play along the songs that I really liked at the time, just because that's what I was getting out of music. And I had a really like weird teacher who like just didn't want to like teach me music. Like I remember I wanted to learn the New Jersey Devils goal song, like
Okay.
the song I would play every time they scored a goal. I was like, oh, I want to learn this on guitar. And then my guitar teacher was like, no, you need to learn all these scales first. I was like, well, fuck that. So then I stopped playing guitar because I just kind of it reminded me of school and I didn't want to do it. Picked up bass and I had a little bit more fun with that. But then the same thing, like oh, I should have somebody show me how to play bass, and then it made it more like school, and I'm like, God, this is annoying. I just want to like rock out. I don't want to, I mean, maybe I was just being a petulant little child with it and didn't want to, learn the inner workings of it, but I just wanted to have fun. So then when I picked up the drums when I was 14, I was like, okay, no lessons. I just want to do this for myself and find out what I love about this thing because I love it inherently. I just want to find out why I love it. And so yeah, so I never took, a lesson or whatever. I just kind of wanted to do it for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, kids, when they want to pick up a guitar, they want to learn how to play their favorite songs. They don't want to learn how to just play scales right away. Like maybe when you're older, you kind of get into the theory scales type of thing. But yeah, drumming, that's perfect because the theory is not quite the same. It's just kind of like you hit this and you hit that, and here's when you hit it, and it's perfect.
Yeah, yeah, and you learn the nuances like along the way, and you learn like, oh wow, this is how I, like that's what I'm trying to do is like, or whatever. But yeah, to me, it's always been, emotionally driven. It's always been, what can deliver the greatest impact, and you're not gonna have any teacher sit you down and be like, here's how you deliver the most impact on
Mhm.
like, beating the shit out of the drums. It's just in you or it's not, and then further refining that and learning, technique and things that help you more accurately, like, oh yeah, I want to level up what I'm doing and be able to express myself in different ways. And you get that by learning. And I've been so fortunate, like we go out on tour and play with, awesome bands, and I've become friends with amazing drummers who I then, learn from. Like I learned tips and tricks from being on tour with Gil Sharon, like, totally amazing drummer who's a good friend of mine. And when you're on the road for, together for like 6 weeks or 2 months or something, you get to share ideas. And it's like that's like the classroom that I have always really loved, is like the classroom of life. Going to have formal lessons is awesome, but I think it's served me well in finding out what I loved about the instrument, and then allowing, my passion for it to then, you know, take it where it's taken me. And I meet people along the way who I'm like, God, what that guy does is like super sick in that song. I want to learn what motivated him, or what inspired him, or what taught him to, to do that, him or her, like I want to, I've always wanted to learn from those people around me. So like that's been the greatest education like you could ever ask for.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it says in your teenage years, you were able to actually play with both the used and the bouncing souls. Is that right?
That is right.
Wow, that's cool. 'Cause we're about the same age, and back when I was growing up, I was a gigantic fan of the Used. They were like one of my like hero bands. Was that the same with you, or the Bouncing Souls?
Yes, absolutely. I first discovered the used. Um, I remember hearing some music coming from my sister's room,
Mm,
and I was like, "What is that?" It sounded like totally new. And I was like, I was starting to get into like my own kind of music. I'd started to shed, the concept of like only listening to music that my parents showed me, like, the
yeah,
Who, the Rolling Stones, the band, Bob Dylan, which all great stuff that I still love. But I wanted to find out stuff that was speaking to me inherently. So coincidentally, it ended up being bands like Slipknot, and you know, going down that rabbit hole of discovering heavy metal for the first time. It just so happens in my story that the first heavy metal band I ever saw was Slipknot.
yeah.
Um, so then going further along and like, having an ear for like, oh wow, that kind of sounds cool. It sort of fits into this, like that guy's yelling his head off and these guitars sound super crazy and these drums are super loud, like sounds awesome, I'm into it. So I heard that and got into the band, met the band because they played on the Conan O'Brien show, and
Oh
so I got
yeah,
to go
yeah.
visit my dad at work and then go see this band that I'm super into. And we met when they played Irving Plaza in New York, which is like to this day probably my favorite venue on earth. So I'll tell you a funny story. So
All
they were
right.
on tour. I had just started playing drums. Like they were on tour, I think in like 2004 or something. And Brandon knew that I had started playing drums. He hadn't seen me play drums, but he just like knew. I was like, oh yeah, I like just started playing drums because we had known each other for a couple years at this point. I'm on the side of the stage watching them play, and he threw a stick at me. And he was like they're like on stage playing, and he throws a stick at me, and he's like, "Do you know this next song?" I was like, "What?" And and he was trying to get me to like come on stage. He'd never seen me play drums before, and he was trying to get me on stage to play this song. I'm like, "No!" and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And so after the show, we're joking about it. He's like, "I don't know. I figured you might be able to play this song." Um, so he's like, I tell you what, come down. We're playing Atlantic City. This is in New York. He's like, we're playing Atlantic City in like a couple days or something. He's like, come down in the afternoon and jam with us at sound check because that could be a lot of fun, and whatever. So I did. I went down to Atlantic City and played a song with them at sound check, and it felt awesome. So they were like, oh, I want to play that during tonight's show, and I was like, sure. Um, so that's how that happened. Playing the Taste of Ink with the Used down in
Man,
Atlantic City. Um, I don't know if anybody has footage of that. I'd love to see it. I don't know if it ever even got like recorded by anybody or anything.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, and I don't remember which one came first. I think I want to say that happened before I played with the Bouncing Souls, because there was a similar situation where I forget how it happened. If I kind of like raised my hand and was like, "Hey, can I play a couple songs with you guys?" Or if they were like, "Hey, like I know like we know you've been playing drums. Like, do
Yeah.
you want to play anything?" And I was like, "Yes, absolutely." And so we played one song and then two songs and then three songs and then pretty much to the point where we played like 20 something Bouncing Soul songs. Like just it was just we played like a whole show at my house. It was like
Wow.
it was a lot of fun. So they were like, "Hey, we're playing a secret show at the Asbury Lanes. Would you want to get up and play with us?" And I had never played drums in front of everybody, in front of anybody. Okay, no. So this preceded me playing with the Used. That's right, because
Okay.
I remember for playing with the Bouncing Souls, it was such a big deal to me because I had never played drums in front of anybody ever before. In fact, that day when we played all those songs, that was the first time I had ever played drums in front of my dad, like
Wow.
literally ever. So the first time my dad ever saw me play was when I kind of raised my hand and asked the Bouncing Souls guys who were at my house playing with him, like, hey, can I play a couple songs with you guys? And then we ended up playing 2 songs together at that Asbury Lanes show. um yeah, it's super rad.
It says in Wikipedia that, of course, you did some touring with Bruce and the E Street Band. It said that the initial portion of you going on tour with them was in April 2009, where you played a few songs to half the show, and then by the next month, you began playing the full shows. That's about right?
Yes,
Okay.
that is accurate. Yeah.
Is it because there was just so many songs to learn? Because they play
Yeah.
long, long shows.
Yeah, I mean, it would be totally sadistic to just throw an 18-year-old into playing, oh, here you go. Like, you never played with E Street Band before. Here's a 4-hour show to just,
Yeah.
like, they're into kicking me into the deep end, but that's just like that'd be like kicking me into the deep end and then just holding my head underwater. But no, so that is how it worked out. The basic gist of the situation was the Conan TV show, the late night show, was transitioning into becoming the Tonight Show,
Yeah.
and it was a whole totally different parameters. It had been in New York for what, 13, 15 years, something like that, 93 till 2009. So whatever that is, 16 years. So it had been in New York that whole time, and now it's transitioning to being out in Burbank. It's going to be an hour earlier, totally different, everything. And to my memory, that the Tonight Show was starting June 1st of 2009,
Yeah.
and Bruce had a European tour scheduled to start May 31st, 2009.
Mhm.
So all of a sudden there's this period of time where it's very obvious my dad has to be in 2 places at once. Bruce approached my dad, I think, more as like father to father, like, all right, so here's this thing that we got to figure out. Do you think Jay would be like up to that challenge? Do you think he could do it? Do you think he'd want to do it? Would it be too much pressure? And my dad was like, I don't know, let's find out. And so they, Bruce asked if I would do it. I was like, of course I'll do that. That sounds insane, and like, what a great, amazing opportunity to, cover for my dad when he needs this, and like, it'd be a tremendous experience all the way around. So like, yes, I'll figure out how to do it, but the answer is yes. It's largely been like how I've just approached like my entire life. It's like, I don't know how I'll do this, but yes, I will do it. So yeah, so Bruce handed off a list. I remember meeting up with them. They played the Super Bowl that year.
Oh,
And
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and so I went to that and met with Bruce because it was the first kind of conversation we were having about doing this. And he handed me a list of easily, I think it was like 200 songs. And he was like, okay, so this is what we're going to start out with. This is like the stuff that we're definitely playing like every night. But then we're going to add to this as we go. And I knew that dynamic of what the band is. Like, I'd been watching it since I was a kid, how he would go out in the audience and pick out signs of requests and just hold them up to the band. And all right, let's start this one, a song that we haven't played in 40 years, whatever. So yeah, so then we played our first shows together, where I would play like a song the first night, and then like 3 or 4 songs the next night. And then, as we went throughout that tour, yeah, it got to the point where then I was playing, the majority of the show, and my dad would come out and play the encore, up until the point where he had to be at the Tonight Show, and then it was all on me. And so by
Mhm.
that time, I was like well integrated into the thing. I know what it's all about. I hadn't played a full show start to finish. But by the time I did, I had a pretty good understanding of what a full, almost 4-hour concert would be, with all those things happening in the midst of it, calling out songs, on the fly and stuff. Not wanting to shortchange what the true E Street Band experience is. And yeah, but that took like the better part of like a year or so. And then when we were off in Europe and my dad was playing the Tonight Show, I was, just trying my best to hold it down for him.
Yeah, I remember seeing, well, first of all, what a great learning experience that is, and then, Second, I remember seeing some footage of you online of you playing in the band wearing a Gigi Allen shirt, and I thought that was the funniest thing. Like, I was like, how many like boomers went and like, oh, I wonder what that band is. I wonder if I'll like googling Gigi Allen and then just being horrified.
Yeah, man. Got to, I don't have any excuse for
I
that.
just thought that was really great. I love that. Uh,
Yeah.
okay, so let's get into Slipknot. It says at the beginning of your tenure in Slipknot, which it's insane that we're going almost on a decade now. Where does the time go? It says you were given the opportunity to make your own mask at first, but the result didn't fit what the band was really looking for at the time.
I don't think that's accurate. I think
Okay.
that, yeah, um, yeah, because I don't remember that at all. But what I do remember was when when we first started putting that record together and stuff. It's like that was such a Herculean feat in and of itself to just join the band and then
Yeah.
make this record. It was like there was a lot to take care of with that because and I knew it then, I know it now, like the music comes first entirely, like
Mm.
everything else, that's the turnkey thing that allows everything else to happen. And it's like I had an idea that that's what it was, being an outsider to the band, that it's like, okay, you make, like I could kind of make educated guesses of like, okay, yeah, they probably spent like this amount of time making the record, and then when you're done making that record and you can kind of listen back to what it makes you feel about the new art you're making, then you get to further extend that creativity to the visual aspect of what the band is all about, because that's what, as a fan of Slipknot, that's you just knew that, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, you think Slipknot is masks, and so that's a whole other element that's then defined by what you've already made without any kind of influence of what the visuals will be, after that. So that's kind of like how I already was thinking about it. But while we were making the record, it's like, okay, this is like so much to focus on, I'm not even thinking about that. And then to my understanding, like Clown kind of had this idea of giving, the new guys in the band, V-Man and myself, kind of the same mask, where we would
Mm.
find our identity in that, and I think it became apparent, and it was interesting because it was never something spoken, it was never something that was like on purpose, it just happened because that's the way life happens.
Mm.
Is his mask became more him, my mask became more mine, even though they kind of started out from the same place. Our personalities started to literally like show through in the ways that they were like decomposing, and I would smear makeup on mine and stuff, and it just kind of became this new thing. And then that largely informed, then when we came back to the table to make another record, and I knew that dynamic of evolving the masks just like I evolved as a person, to use that as like a basis for how I would transform into a new mask that was even more different or whatever. um but yeah, I don't think I think that was probably, kind of freshman hazing stuff that we all went through, of like, oh yeah, those guys made masks, and like
Okay.
it didn't work out. That didn't really happen.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. It says that "We Are Not Your Kind" was originally supposed to be a double album.
I remember, I mean, like, I think overall the answer would be no, because
Okay.
like the album We Are Not Your Kind ended up being like what we intended to
Mm.
make. Like we spent 3 years very deliberately like making every musical choice on that album. Um, it was an ambitious idea to have it be a double record. We stopped ourselves from embarking on a project like that because we had a focused set of songs that was like, Unsainted and Birth of the Cruel and
Mm.
Solway Firth and Not Long for This World have been kicking around for a while. Um, where we didn't feel, for lack of a better way of describing it, it's like I don't, as we went along, I think it became more and more apparent to us that what we were making was not going to constitute a double album.
Hmm.
I think when you're embarking on a project like that, you have to you have to give a project like that what it wants. You can't just kind of go into it, be like, let's make a double album, and or like, you know, what we're making, it will be a double album. It's like you just got to make something that if you're doing that, like there are certain, not that there are rules, but they're kind of like you have to be open to like really spending an exorbitant amount of time on doing something like that if it's going to be good. You know, we can't just kind of put together something like, oh yeah, that song's kind of done, that'll be one of 40 songs, or you know, like we didn't want anything to kind of meet that like partial complete, you know, partially completed kind of song and just be like, oh yeah, put that on there and then let's have like 40 of them and it'll be this double album. I think as the record started to show its face, it started to become pretty apparent what it wanted to be, which was not a double album. And I think that, you know, that's good. That makes for, you know, a potent listen. I certainly think that, you know, that is an ambition of ours at one point to do that,
Mm.
because you know, for challenges that are that Slipknot still has yet to overcome, yeah, that could, you know, that could be like an awesome one for us to do. But yeah, We Are Not Your Kind just kind of shaped up to be like, let's leave it be what it is.
Jay, thank you so much once again, man. It's so great to talk to you. And of course, the end so far is out now. Go out and get yourself that copy of that record. Slipknot, one of the best bands ever. This man knows what I'm talking about. We both grew up on this band. The love for the band goes on forever. And thank you very much, Jay. Greatly
Thanks, man.
appreciate
Yeah,
it.
talk to you later.